Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome here. It's great to see everyone. Now, can anyone remember why they're here? No. So we're going to try to do lots of things to help you sort of retain and remember this. That can be a challenge in itself. There were some papers outside there. We're printing some more, and they all have to do with the content that Sherry is going to present. But they're also all on our website. So just remember Renforth, that's the name of the parish, renforth.org. And that's our website. And everything that we printed out there is also there, and you can download it and print it out yourself. We're also going to record this, and I'll post the video of Sherry's presentation on our website as well. So lots of ways, if you thought you might have heard something and then you forgot what it was, hopefully there's a way back to find that out. There's tea and coffee and snacks out there. You're welcome to go grab something now or later, but we will have a formal break after Sherry does her presentation. And then when we come back in, we'll have some questions and answers. This is your chance to stump the expert. Okay. Always a great part of our presentations. We've been doing this kind of thing for a number of years now, just wanting to serve seniors in our area. And we've got other things coming up. We're going to have a 4-part smackdown between a physiotherapist, a massage therapist, a chiropractor, and a podiatrist, some of whom don't get along with the others. But they all deal with your aches and pains. And, my wife, Val, and I have found that sometimes you have to go to one and sometimes you have to go to another. And so we want to get kind of all 4 here and just sort of say, okay, what do you do? How does it work? What do you do? How does it work? So that's going to be a fun one. We'll be doing something on navigating the elder care system. And maybe I'm going too far in calling it a system. Maybe it's just a bunch of random things that happen in the universe. But there are programs and there's a system out there for how we look after our elderly loved ones. And we did this a few years ago. We had somebody from the Ministry of Health Community Services. We had a lawyer. We had several people all sort of feeding into those big questions that we have when you're trying to care for somebody and you just don't know how to get things going. Like to do something on computers and other devices. Anybody rely on an iPhone or an iWatch or a computer to sort of track their calendars? So, and some people have difficulties with those. So we'll be doing something on that. We'll be looking also at in-home care options, a much more feasible way to look after our elderly people, us. Basically, if we can do it in home. And there's some options there and things that need to be advocated for. And next month, November, we'll have Dan Curran from Rossay PharmaChoice down here. It's called Ask a Pharmacist. And there's lots of things that we might not understand that a pharmacist can do for you. And he'll be talking about that. He's a community pharmacist. And then right after Christmas, after we've eaten our fill of all kinds of good things, Jen Blackwood is going to talk about healthy food choices. She didn't want to do it before Christmas. So have your due. And then the last one, hopefully in June, we're going to do something called Car Fit. You remember ever going to the fire department and you're learning how to put your car seat in for your babies, and they did a whole program? Well, there's one for seniors as well. And it's basically how a senior should adjust their mirrors, their steering wheel, their seat, and all of that. And we did that a few years ago. And I'll tell you, to this day, I still use the steps and that we learned at that event. So we're going to hopefully do that again. There were some brochures out there. They're all gone. We're printing some more, but like I said, they're all available on our website as well. So just, I just want to say a prayer for us. This is a ministry of St. James the Less Church. I define ministry as simply saying, how can I help you? Have you ever been to Canadian Tire and you're looking for somebody who walk up to you who would say, how can I help you? A rare find. But really, that's all ministry is. It's just us as a church saying, how can we help? And we have found a great response in gathering seniors together and trying to answer some basic questions. So let's just bow our heads for a moment. Father in heaven, we thank you for our years. And Lord, as we age, we know that we encounter difficulties. And so, Lord, we ask your blessing, your guidance as Sherry speaks and answers some of our questions. And Lord, we pray for all the seniors in this area, that we would find the helps that we need to live full and productive lives. In the name of our God, our Savior, Jesus. Amen. So, Sherry Gionet is, are you retired? I still see lots of things after your name, that you're a geriatric researcher, and maybe you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and what you did before. What qualifies you to come and speak to us?
Hi, everybody. So the biggest thing that qualifies me is my gray hair. I know you thought that I was dyeing it, but it is really quite natural. I look at pictures of me now when I had dark brown hair and it scares the hell out of me. I think, oh, you look awful. I really like the gray. So my name is Sherry Gionet. I was, and still am, a geriatric nurse. I graduated from the St. John's School of Nursing in 1984. And this Saturday night, we are celebrating our 40th anniversary. So I'm feeling really, really old. A lot of things have changed in that 40 years, most of you would know. I think that we had the best of times. I really do. I think we made some great gains in geriatric care over that 40 years. My whole life has been dedicated to geriatric care. When I was young, my father would always adopt these elderly gentlemen who had issues with alcohol or whatever, and were kind of left on their own. I don't know where he found them, but he did. And these gentlemen were always in our home for meals. My father would run and get them groceries. He would get them set up in an apartment. He would kind of keep an eye on them. And when they died, he would drag me to their funerals. When they were alive, they taught me how to play crib, and I can attest that I am a cribbage champion to this day. And my two favorite older gentlemen that my father cared for were Frosty and Snowy. And one was Ernest Frost, and the other guy was something Snow. Anyway, we called them Frosty and Snowy. That's all I knew them by. Anyway, so they were what formed me into a geriatric nurse, because I just love these two old men. And I thought, well, my father's been looking after old people, so I might as well look after old people too. So I did, and I got through nursing school, and I suffered through obstetrics, and I suffered through emergency, and I suffered through pediatrics. I hated it all. And then I got to geriatrics, and I thought, this is my place. And that's where I stayed for 40 years and loved every moment of it. I worked at the St. John Regional Hospital, and then I moved to St. Joe's. And that's where I finished off my career. So I retired in 2018. But I was just saying to Diane over here, a former old nurse, that back in the day, I had learned all this information, and I hate to shut it all off now. So I spent some time doing research and doing talks for people like you, and trying to share my knowledge of what I know about geriatric care. So hopefully I will give you some good examples today that you will remember, and give you a couple of laughs along the way. Sometimes I'm appropriate, sometimes not. So just bear with me on that one too. I'll try to be respectful being in a church. I'm surprised it hasn't fallen down around me yet, but I'm sure that could happen. So I'll have my glasses up and down because I'm older now and I cannot see to read close up. And I even made the print larger, but I still can't see it. So I'm just going to go through some of the handouts that I left for you out there. I'm going to go through them. They're kind of a guide for us. I'm not going to read them verbatim. I'm just going to talk about them as we go through, and then you can kind of make some notes or make some questions up for me later if you like. So now, it wouldn't be a talk unless I gave you some statistics about geriatrics and how we're all aging. So right now, as you know, we're all getting older. And by 2030, which is only 6 years away, almost 5, researchers are projecting that 1 million people in Canada are going to have dementia. 1 million people. And then by 2050, which is only another 20 years later, they're predicting 1.7 million people. So I'm looking at me. I'm 63 years old. In 6 years, I'll be 69. Hopefully, I'm going to be in good health and a good mindset, and that things will be healthy and on the go. Hey, Diane. I didn't see you there. So hopefully, I'm going to be in good health and doing okay. But boy, when I look at that 2060 or 2050, I'll be almost 90. And I suspect that I will be having some issues by then, but there will be nowhere for me to be looked after, I'm pretty sure. I think that, you know, I only had one child and I've been really, really good to her. And I've said to her, please be really, really good to me. And, you know, I told her, I don't want anything extraordinary done. I don't want anything fancy. Just make sure that I don't have any pain and I'm happy and we'll be good to go. But just to let you know that those numbers are growing all the time. So let's look at New Brunswick. Okay, so right now there are approximately, that we know of, many people go undiagnosed. So right now we have approximately 13,000 people in New Brunswick living with dementia. Okay, then you have all their family members that are affected by this because we're all doing personal caregiving, right? So approximately 7 New Brunswickers are diagnosed every day here in New Brunswick. So that's quite a bit. By the year 2038, the number of people with dementia in New Brunswick is expected to double to 26,000, just in New Brunswick alone. So it's really, really sad. I'm not looking forward to my elder years. But anyway, just to give you a little rundown on the statistics. We are an aging community. All right, so what we wanted to talk about today was what's normal and what's not normal. So I wanted to talk about different types of memory loss. So not all memory loss is related to dementia, and I want to give you a definition of dementia. Dementia is a big umbrella, such as cancer, same word or same umbrella. So if you get diagnosed with cancer, people will say, well, what type of cancer do you have? Do you have breast cancer? Do you have colon cancer? Do you have stomach cancer? When we say dementia, people should be asking you, well, what type of dementia do you have? Not that it's really any of their business, but I'm using that as an example. So they could say to you, well, I have Alzheimer's dementia, or I have vascular dementia, which means your blood vessels are affecting your brain, or I have a really rare strain. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. The fact is you still have dementia and you're going to require care probably at some point in your life. So when we talk about normal memory loss, we're going to be talking about like age-associated memory loss. So as we get older, our brains are shrinking, as well as our hair follicles and all of our other body parts. Everything's shrinking. Well, I'm getting bigger, but most people are really shrinking. And there's changes to your body as you age and all of your organs, etc. So your brain also is aging. So We tell you that it's probably not going to disrupt your life, that you can't remember the neighbors that you lived next door to 25 years ago, that you can't remember their name or their kids' names or whatever. It's not a big deal. No big deal. It's not going to affect your ability to complete your tasks as you normally would. So you could drive, you can do your banking, you can live on your own. Really, the only thing is you can't remember Johnny's name or you forgot where you left your keys. I do that now. I have to search around my house already looking for my phone, my keys, etc. But it's not considered dementia. You don't have difficulty learning or doing new things. So for an example, I live in a 55 plus building now in Fredericton. And I'm kind of the caretaker of the building, whether I want to be or not, because it's my personality. And people who have needs seem to gravitate to me. So I'm running around doing my rounds in this building. There's 23 units and I'm the nurse. So yesterday I went to visit the lady downstairs from me who looks after her husband with Parkinson's, and he's in a nursing home, but comes home on passes. And she said to me, I'm really struggling. I can't figure out how to work this new iPad. And so her daughter had written a ton of directions down for her. And she was still struggling because she was unable to learn that new information. And she couldn't follow the directions that her daughter had left for her. And I thought to myself, okay, so I'm thinking you probably are entering into a phase of dementia here, early Alzheimer's or early something. And because you're just unable to learn new information. So anyway, I'll go back and probably help her many, many times to get on and so she can write her messages to her family and that sort of thing. So, but just the difficulty of learning a new task. Usually there are no underlying medical conditions that may be causing memory problems. And I say this several times throughout my talk, is that really you cannot have a diagnosis of dementia unless you see your family doctor or your nurse practitioner or a geriatrician. You don't need to see a geriatrician to have a diagnosis, but you do need to see a primary care provider that will give you that diagnosis. Nobody else can do that except them. And they do it with testing that is usually given to you by a nurse. And that way they assess how you're doing. So though you may have difficulties remembering things on occasion, these are not signs that you have dementia. You may just not remember things as quickly as you used to in your younger years because your brain is slowing down a little bit. So then we move into another section, which is called mild cognitive impairment. And this 50% of people with mild cognitive impairment can move on to having a dementia, or they may just stay put in that little space of having mild cognitive impairment. So these are mild. You experience memory loss and other symptoms such as difficulty speaking, disorientation, but they're not so severe that they interfere with your normal daily functions and routines. And people with MCI are out there functioning. Most of them don't even know they have it. You know, it's just their memory's a little bit worse than yours or mine. So when it becomes dementia is when your cognitive ability affects your daily life and your routine. Family members will often notice that dad's not washing like he used to. He smells. He has a body odor. Dad's ignoring his banking. He's double paying bills. Dad's, not driving well. He's been in a few fender benders. These sorts of things are we call them activities of daily living and also, functions and tasks that you need to do for everyday life. Again, unable to learn new things, unable to complete familiar tasks that you always did, such as banking, organizing, cooking. One lady, her husband told us when I was working on the GEM unit that his wife had made some kind of a muffin mix that she'd always done or whatever, but instead of adding sugar, she added salt instead. And he said it was really difficult because she was a beautiful cook her whole life. And then to have, these salty, horrendous things that you had to throw out. He said we couldn't eat them. But he said, luckily she forgot all about it. So he said it didn't last too long. Usually people around you will notice problems with your abilities more so than you will if you're having a dementia that's starting. A lot of people do not have the insight to say, oh, I think I'm not driving well, or I think I'm not cooking well, or did I pay that bill? I don't know, whatever. So, a lot of people, it's somebody on the outside looking in to see the changes. All right, so if we're looking at brain health, some of us will get dementia because it's the luck of the draw. Some of us will get dementia because of our lifestyle. So I used to give this talk, a talk to the high school students, and I used to say to them, why does this affect you now? Why am I talking to you about this now? And the reason why I was telling them things was because I wanted them to do everything in moderation. I wanted them to drink in moderation when they started drinking alcohol. I wanted them to exercise. I wanted them to eat nutrition, have good nutrition and eat sweets in moderation, to do all the things that we're told to do in moderation, because everything that we enter into our bodies or the stress that we experience, all those things are causing our inside organs to work a certain way. So if we're eating a lot of fat, we have high cholesterol, we have high blood pressure, we're causing a lot of stress on our blood vessels and a lot of damage to our blood vessels. All of our blood vessels feed our brain, also feed our heart, our kidneys, and all of our major organs. So if you're having heart trouble because of blockages, most likely you're having some blockages up here. And so I tell people, if you could just, when you're younger, start in moderation with your exercise, with eating, and all of that sort of thing, that is really crucial for later life. For if you're in a position that you can avoid getting anything. So I like people to be physically active, whether it's just to walk around the block, it's better than nothing. If you have diabetes, keeping your sugars intact because that affects all your blood vessels. Your blood pressure, keeping that under check, high cholesterol, and social activities, because like your body, we also need to exercise our brains. So those of you who do Wordle every day, keep going. Even if you can't get it in the 5 chances, keep at it. If you play cards, if you do anything like that, stick with it, because it really does improve your brain health. And with COVID, I think we all suffered through COVID as far as our social life and everything going down. And I have found with myself, I have to make an effort to get out and socialize with people now, because I really like being alone. And especially after, being stuck in your apartment or in your house where we weren't allowed to be out visiting and socializing. I think it took its toll on us, but I think if you can and you have the opportunity, please get out there and be with other people, because as human beings, that is part of our psyche and we need that for our health. So I would encourage you to do that. One thing I say about activity is thinking about it as activity and not exercise, because exercise has a really negative connotation to it. So if you say that I'm doing an activity, it seems to make your brain think that you're doing something that's not as yucky. I'm not going to read this verbatim. I left the printouts for all this so you can read it at your own pleasure. So again, it's about being socially active and trying to avoid depression and social isolation. And just get out there and have some fun. And then my big thing is once a day, I try and do one kind thing for one person. And if I can accomplish that once a day, I feel like I've done something. So yesterday I went to a new pizza parlor in Fredericton, and I got myself some Salvatore pizza, which I've never tried before. And it was really delicious, and I ate half of it, hence getting wider. But anyway, I on my way home, I saw a homeless fellow, so I just pulled over and I just gave him the rest of the pizza. And I thought, okay, that's my one kind thing for today. So if you can find one little thing to do every day, it'd be great. Follow a healthy diet, as we talked about earlier, and Eric talked about it. We're not really going to discuss it till after Christmas, but maybe that could be your New Year's resolution, would be to try and improve your diet so that your cholesterol and everything is under check. Again, with alcohol, it's the same thing, trying to keep that at moderation. Smoking isn't really so much now, but I do like to throw in that cannabis, where it's legal now. I do want you to know that it's really not a good thing for a senior brain. It's a good thing, well, maybe if you're 18 or 19, but then I don't think it's a good thing. But I don't think it's as detrimental to you then as it is when you're an older person. So stay away from the pot shops, okay? Even though it could cause you to have lots of fun. Find healthy ways to add flavor to your meals. Be mindful of your eating habits, etc. And make conscious and safe choices when you're out and about, like for driving. Try not to drive like at traffic hours, like when people are getting off work, all that sort of thing. If you have errands to run, try and do them earlier in the day. So research has found that next to aging, and in some case genetics, lifestyle and environmental factors are the most influential factors in determining one's risk for dementia. So that's really important. There are younger people who can get dementia like in their 40s and 50s, and that's more of a genetic type of Alzheimer's. So those people, their children will often opt to have genetic testing done to see if they have a gene. And it's quite sad. I met a girl years ago at a conference. Her mother died when she was 44 of Alzheimer's, and she had the early onset. And this girl's name was Amanda, and I'll never forget her. She did a documentary with a Canadian fellow with the beard. See, my memory's going to David Suzuki. She did it, and it was called Amanda's Choice. And she spoke at this conference, and she at the time, I think was 23. She had a son and she had a brother, and she opted to have the testing done. She had genetic counseling and all that, and she ended up being positive for the gene. So she knew where her life was going in the near future. Her brother refused to get tested, which was his choice. And so she said mostly it was to make plans for her son. But it was one of the most profound talks I've ever been to. It was really something. So yeah, let's see here. That's that, right? Managing stress, I talked to you about that. If it's none of your business, it's none of your business. So, and what other people think of you is none of your business. So don't stress over what other people think. Okay, just try and think positive thoughts, and your stress level will actually go down. It's proven. I haven't done a research project on that, but many people have, and it is proven that, you know, if you're trying to stay positive and you're not trying to please other people by, you know, conforming to how they think you should be, then you'll be a much happier person. So I really stress that part. Oh, stress. Look at that. I didn't mean to do that, but anyway. Take personal time for yourself. Don't run around doing everything for everybody and not taking care of yourself. You need to take care of yourself. It's really, really important. Set realistic expectations for yourself. Get plenty of sleep. And if you do need some help, please ask for it. Ask your children, ask your friends, ask your neighbors. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to bother you. Well, you know what? There's somebody like me out there looking for a nice thing to do for somebody today. So if I can give you a drive to the grocery store, then you're fulfilling my need too. So I always tell people, please. So yeah, so that's the brain health part. So when we get into the possible signs of dementia, so we have disorientation to time and place. We have loss of initiative, and that's this sheet here, and you can read more about it there. But these are just things to look for. Misplacing things, and again, we all misplace things, so that's, you can't do that one thing at a time or one particular, you have to have more than one of these things. Changes in your mood, behavior, and personality. So if you're normally a happy-go-lucky person and all of a sudden you're yelling at everybody and you're not getting along with people and or you're just laying around, you don't want to do anything, you really need to see your doctor and find out if you're depressed. Or maybe you have a symptom called apathy, which is a symptom of dementia, meaning that you just don't feel like doing anything. You have no interest. So your doctor can tease out those things. Difficulty doing familiar tasks, as we talked about earlier. Problems with abstract thinking. So when my daughter was small, I used to buy her these books called Amelia Bedelia. And if any of you are familiar with Amelia, the whole book was done with abstract thinking. So she would work for people and they would say, I want you to put out the lights. So those of us with concrete thinking, no, we're going to turn out the lights. But Amelia Bedelia would take all the lights and put them outside. Or if you were going to pitch a tent, most of us would know we were going to put up a tent. Amelia Bedelia would literally pitch the tent out in the yard, like throw it. So it's just, people can't kind of do the abstract thinking. They need to have everything very concrete. So go to the brown door, turn to your right, and then go out the other door. Instead of saying, something that's very out there, like, oh, you have to go through the double doors and you'll find your way. So if people are having difficulty with those type of instructions or whatever, and it's new for them, then just kind of think about it. Impaired judgment, like not recognizing a medical problem that needs attention, or being outside on a cold day and wearing summer clothes and they're not appropriately dressed, then there's something kind of maybe going on there as well. Changes in language and communication. One of the big things about dementia is word finding. So words that you've known your whole life, all of a sudden it's at the tip of your tongue and you can't pull it out. Those are things to be, if it's consistent, just keep an eye out for those too. And then the memory changes that affect your day-to-day abilities, and then changes in your sight and in how you move. So if you're having a shuffling gait or you're noticing that you're losing your balance, those are things to check in with your doctor as well and see, we often will say that people with a shuffling gait, it looks like Parkinson's disease, but it also can be a symptom of dementia as well. So check in with your doctor on that stuff. Common questions, I'm going to go over those. I think after the break, we'll just talk about those and when I answer your questions. So what happens if, you go to your doctor and your doctor says, yeah, I've done some testing here and I really think that you might be showing the early signs of dementia. So what happens now? What are you going to do? Not everybody needs to go and see a geriatrician. And I think that's a common myth that people in St. John think that with the geriatric clinics that we have here, which we're so fortunate to have, that people with, any type of memory problem need to see a geriatrician. It's not true. Your family doctor can diagnose you easily in their office. They have screening tests that they can do. And I did bring one with me today, a very short screening test. I didn't put it on the table because I didn't want everybody to take one. I just want, and I'll talk about that when I come back, but I just wanted, it's called a clock drawing test. And I wanted to explain to you with that if you do the test, or if you have somebody in your family do the test, that they take that piece of paper to their family doctor and show their family doctor instead of just trying to assume on your own that this means I have dementia. It's a screening tool, and I'll explain it in a bit. But first things first, the Alzheimer's Society of New Brunswick is a wonderful society. They have a ton of information. You can access it all online. You can access it personally. You can go to their offices. They have a wonderful program, which is a link program that you call them. They link you up to whatever kind of knowledge services you need. They do not set you up with any home care. They do not set you up with anybody in social development, which is who you need to see if you want home care, etc. but they will give you the information and the know-how, and they will tell you what they think you would need to learn. Changes to expect. I think there's a lot of stigma still with saying you have dementia or Alzheimer's or anything. People tend to isolate you because they don't know what to say to you. And I tell people, please forget the word Alzheimer's and just treat them like people. You know, have a game of cards. You know, you can still have conversations. There's all kinds of things that people with dementia can do. And they're all amongst us now. And we're, once you give a name to it, some people just tend to back off because they don't know what to say. I always encourage people to join a support group, especially at the Alzheimer's Society. Again, that can all be done online. Getting education. I'm not sure if the Alzheimer's Society still does a 6-part series, but I was quite involved in that when I lived in St. John years ago. And we used to do a 6-week course on dealing with dementia and how to plan and how to get resources for you to learn how to deal with things and how to move forward within our system, which is extremely complicated. So the Alzheimer's Society is really where I would direct people to right off the bat. Let's see here. Memory tips and trips. Tips and tricks. Trick or treat, right? I wanted to tell you, we were talking about this last night. We have a social room in our building, and I was telling the ladies that I was sitting with that I was going to come give this talk today. And one of them said to me, well, you can share this story tomorrow. And I said, okay, fine. She said, you know, she said, when my brother had dementia, she said he had Alzheimer's, and she said he used to read the Fredericton Gleaner every day. And she said he used to call, he'd get into the employment section, and he used to call trying to get a job every day because he couldn't remember that he didn't work. So when they'd have a job opportunity, he'd be calling all these people and he'd be saying, you know, I need a job, I need a job. And then another lady piped up and she said, oh, I've got one better than that. And I thought, oh, okay. And she said, her brother and sister-in-law or whatever, she said they were sitting at the table and, or the sister was out of the room and the husband was on the phone. And then when she came in, he said to her, what's our visa number anyway? And she thought, oh my God, who's he talking to? And she said, put that phone down right now, hang up. You're not giving our visa number out to anybody. And he said, no, I need the visa number. He said, the fellow's right here, he's waiting. And what he had done, there was a full page ad for Viagra. And he had called the number and he was talking to the salesperson about this Viagra. And thank God he didn't have the visa number in his hand because she said, I don't know how much he would have ordered. She said, I think I would have been really, really sorry. But anyway, like, so they ended up with the fellow that was applying for all these jobs, they ended up taking away the newspaper. They had to cancel the subscription because he was always looking for it. And then this fellow here, she also canceled the paper. So anyway, so there's no more Viagra coming into our building unless my husband's ordering some. So just to talk about some tips and tricks, you know, when somebody you love has dementia and you get tired of answering the question for the millionth time, it can be really frustrating. But I just want you to remember, to that person, every time is the first time. And it's really, really hard and frustrating to learn that. Many of us want to put in our own thoughts and feelings about it, and it's just really frustrating. So I think my favorite tip of all is to have a whiteboard that you can just say, Mom, you have an appointment on Thursday for your hair. It's just something simple. 2:00 is your hair appointment, Thursday. And then, of course, she's going to say, what day is it today? And you're going to say, it's Monday or it's Tuesday. But every time, you know, she's kind of looking over there and she's saying, oh, I have a hair appointment on Thursday. Okay. What day is it today? So then you go and you say, okay, I'm going to add on there. Today is Monday. You have a hair appointment on Thursday. So that will eliminate 2 questions for you that you won't have to answer 25 times today. So I really like the whiteboard idea. I just think it's easy, and you can put things down on there that you think are super important and will just help you along. Post-it notes, they're okay, but they would drive me insane because I'm not a post-it note girl and I hate all that clutter everywhere. So that wouldn't do me good. So I told my daughter, don't mark on the cupboard where the glasses are. Just let me look. Because it'll actually give me some exercise for my arms and whatever, looking for different cups and saucers, etc. Oven timers, if your oven's still able to cook, if you can set timers, or if you have a Google or an Alexa, Alexa, ring the bell in 25 minutes. I got my father an Alexa, but he didn't like the way she talked to him. So she's gone. And he said, I think she's listening to everything I'm saying and doing. And I said, well, she probably is. I don't think that's paranoia, but I had bought him a little Google thing there that I could do videos with, so I could call them and have conversations with them. And anyway, no. So I said, don't look, just tell her, just say, Alexa, I want to hear country music. She'll play you country music. And he said, well, I just don't like her. And I said, okay, fine. So I took her away. Anyway, my grandson has her now and he goes over, Alexa, play something funky. And so they do. Visual cues, hanging a backpack on your door handle can serve as a reminder to take it with you when you leave your home. I'm a list maker, so I make lists and I cross off everything as I go. So this is my list for today and the things I highlight so I can, and normally I'd have a pen and I'd be crossing them off as I go. It's very rewarding when you get to the end of the list and everything's done. So I'm personally a list taker. So when I'm going to do anything or see anybody, I load everything by the back door. So this morning I had some cookies and stuff and I put them by the back door and I had my name tag, everything just goes so I know where it is. So those are my visual cues. I love this one. Putting your laundry hamper in your living room will remind you that you need to do laundry. I put it in front of my husband. There you go. There's your job for the day. And your imagination is the only limit on how you can use visual cues to help you remember things. So it's totally up to you how you do that. A notebook and pen. I'm a phone person, so my calendar and my phone is my lifeline. So when I have a meeting or if I'm working and I am going somewhere, everything is on my phone. So if my daughter calls me and says, can you pick up Wesley at school today? It's just a minute. I have to check the phone and yes or no, and I'll be there to get him. So, and if it weren't there, I probably wouldn't know because it's just the way I keep track of myself. Keep belongings in one place. That doesn't happen in my house. My husband moves everything. So I can't find anything. So, and he can't find anything in the fridge. So he says, I move everything. So there you go. Can't win. Have duplicates of things that you often use. So when you lose something that you have something else there to grab. And that's especially helpful for chargers. And in my house, I think we have about 20 iPhone chargers in the house because they're just everywhere and we can just plug in. And same with eyeglasses. I only wear glasses for reading, so I have glasses everywhere in my house. I have 8 pair and they're all over the place. Emails, flagging that, you know, the emails that you want to follow up on, go through them once a week to make sure you followed up on them. And then when you do reply to an email, delete it. And I just have a folder and I just move them over into that. So again, lots more of these tips and tricks that are online at the Alzheimer's Society. I did leave you this wonderful, they call it a poem, but it's not a poem. You'll see it's this color here and it was out on the table. Sorry. And it's called Things I Would Want You to Do for Me If I Had Dementia. So it's worth reading quickly. If I get dementia, I want my friends and family to embrace my reality. So don't argue with me. Don't tell me that it's raining out there when the sun is shining, because my reality is that it's raining. So you're only going to argue with me and upset me. If I get dementia, I don't want to be treated like a child. And I see a lot of that. Even in healthcare now, I see people, oh, lovey, you know, what are we going to do today? You know, do we need our diaper changed? You know, really, it's very demeaning, and a lot of people, I still see some of that when I'm doing some of my research projects. If I get dementia, I still want to enjoy the things that I've always enjoyed. Help me find a way to exercise, read, and visit with my friends. If I get dementia, ask me to tell you a story from my past. If I get dementia and I become agitated, take time to figure out what's bothering me. Some people with dementia cannot tell you they have pain. They can't tell you they're constipated. They can't tell you they need to go to the washroom. Those words are not able to come out of their brain. They just can't find them. So instead it comes out as agitation, and people will often take that personally. So I just ask you to try and find out what's going on with them. If I get dementia, make sure that there are plenty of snacks for me in the house. So I'm a salt person. I'm not a sweet person. So please leave me chips and dip everywhere and some veggies chopped up, and I'll be quite happy. If I get dementia, don't talk about me as if I'm not in the room, because people with dementia still have hearing for the most part. If I get dementia, don't feel guilty if you cannot care for me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not your fault. You didn't give it to me. You've done your best to take care of me as long as you could. And find someone who can help you, or choose a great new place for me to live. And that's a tough one, because people have so much guilt when they're sending somebody off to a nursing home. And it's not that you're putting them there. It's because you can no longer care for them yourself. If I get dementia and I live in a dementia care community, please visit me often. You don't have to stay long, just come often. If I get dementia, don't act frustrated if I mix up names, events, or places. Take a deep breath. It's not my fault. It's a disease in my brain. If I get dementia, make sure I always have my favorite music playing within earshot. My favorite song is Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. So I will be singing that until the day I die. I told my daughter she's actually to play that at my funeral. If I get dementia and I like to pick up items and carry them around, help me return them to their original places. If I get dementia, don't exclude me from parties and family gatherings, although I might get a little bit overwhelmed with a lot of people around. If I get dementia, know that I still like receiving hugs or handshakes. And remember, if I get dementia, remember that I'm still the person you know and love. And I think that's probably the best of those. So I promised you I was going to talk to you quickly about the clock drawing test. So one of my neighbors, her dad, lived in Bathurst, and she moved to Fredericton to be close to her daughter. Her story and my story are very similar for why we moved to Fredericton. She wanted to be closer to her daughter, etc. So she moved her mom and dad to Fredericton, and they're in an apartment building not far from our building. And her father had had his license taken away because he had been diagnosed with vascular dementia, meaning the blood vessels to his brain were clogging and causing him some problems. Anyway, as far as he was concerned, there was absolutely nothing with his brain. He was so mad at this doctor for taking away his license, yada, yada, yada. And that's all he talked about all the time. I'm going to get my license back. I'm going to get my license back. Nothing wrong with me. And every now and again, he drives into our driveway in their car. So he doesn't pay heed to what the doctor told him anyway. So this summer, he went for his annual physical in Bathurst, and they did this test with him. And it's called the clock drawing test. And all it is, it's a circle. And you put in the numbers as if you were looking at a clock. And then we get you to put the hands in to say 10 past 11. Well, this gentleman, this very smart man, he couldn't do it. And he tried. And he tried. He had the numbers all going down one side. And then he erased. And then he tried again. And he did the same thing again. And he looked at it and he said, I know that's not right, but I can't do it. And so the doctor said to him, I'm going to give you one more try and we'll see how you make out. So he did. He still couldn't do it. And he was so frustrated. So she said to him, she said, just from this test alone, I really don't think you should be driving. But if you would like, I will send you to a geriatrician and you can have a further battery of tests that will really pull out where your difficulties are. Anyway, he didn't opt for the geriatric testing because he just decided that he didn't want to be told anything more about how bad his brain was behaving. So I have this test. I have 20 of them with me I brought. But the biggest thing I tell you about it is that if you or anybody you love, if you want them to fill in the numbers and the instructions are right here, please take this piece of paper to your family doctor and let them keep it on their file. And it will just be a baseline for them as to how things are going if you have concerns. All right. So with that, let's have a break, Eric, for coffee and tea, and then we'll come back and I'm here if you want to ask some questions.
Please come back into the building, bring your tea and coffee with you. It's perfectly acceptable. And we're going to have a time for some questions and some scenarios. See if we can further help people. Sure.
But I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
So I apologize if people did not get one of those handouts. You can go to rentforth.org and just the first article there will be just a complete list. You can just read it right online, or you can download the documents and have a look at them. And I think that's mostly covered the stuff that you were talking about, Sherry. I want to start off with one question. And this is something I found to be helpful, but I just want to know if there's any science behind it. I found it helpful to take fish oil pills and the omega-3, 6, and 9 in them. And I found that my memory, or at least the organization of my brain, was better. But maybe can you talk with that and any other things that might help, like as we begin to experience normal aging related memory loss, are there things that we can do about it? You did talk about just healthy brains, and I think that there's some good stuff there, but just talk about, are there any other things, any supplements or anything like that that
Okay.
will help?
So personal opinions only. I'm not going to speak on anybody else's behalf except my own and the geriatric people that I've worked with for 100 years.
Oh, you forgot 24.
Yeah, 40, yeah, 100 years, yeah. I personally, my belief is that it's all garbage. Sorry. I think it's mindset. If you think it's helping, it's helping. There's all these research things that say that it works, but according to the science of the people I work with, and they are very brilliant doctors and nurses, it's garbage. I think it's a scam on drug companies to get your money. That's my personal opinion. And I think if you eat a healthy diet and you do all the things that we talked about earlier, then it will help your brain. I think that if you take fish oil, it can add oil to your blood vessels, which can clog them.
That's not.
And again, it's only my personal opinion, and not on behalf of any drug companies. And I hope there's no reps here because they probably would sue me for saying that. But that's my personal opinion. When we used to do pharmacy rounds, when I worked on the geriatric assessment unit, the first thing we did was slash and burn drugs. And I would encourage you to meet with your family doctors once a year and slash and burn your drugs. It's really helpful. And we would get rid of all those omegas and vitamins that you don't need, because you're just peeing them out anyway. So they're just taking a route through your body and costing your wallet money. And that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you for that. Now, other questions that you have that haven't been addressed so far. I'm just going to bring the mic so everybody can hear. Stick your hand up if you have a question. Here.
We were just talking about over-the-counter drugs. What, is there a drug that a doctor could prescribe to slow dementia? Is there anything at all?
Excellent question. And I meant to bring that up. Thank you for that reminder. There are drugs. One of them is called Aricept. That's probably, the most common one. All drugs come with two names. So Aricept is the brand name. Donepezil is the trade name. So what that does is slows you down, slows down the progression. It doesn't cure anything. There's a few others. There's galantamine, there's rivastigmine, but there's a few other ones. But Aricept really only works for about a year. At the end of the year or the end of 5 years, they say that you will be in the same place, only you got there slower. So it'll slow you down, but you're still going to progress. So if your quality of life is really good and you're early diagnosed, go for it. At least for a year or 2 years. And it may extend the quality of your life for those couple of years. The only thing is they're really hard on your stomach. They give people a lot of diarrhea. They give you a lot of gastric issues so that you can't eat. You have heartburn, you vomit. So those things. And there's also some side effects from those, such as heart issues. So there's not some great side effects from them. Anybody who has a history of seizures or who has a history of what we call AV block, which is a conduction pathway in your heart that's picked up on a cardiogram, cannot take the drugs at all, or people with bad stomachs. So, yeah. And then there are other drugs that we take for granted that you've been taking for maybe 10 years, which is why I suggest that you speak with your family doctor once a year and go over your drugs. and just say, do I really need this blood pressure pill? I've lost 25 pounds. I'm out walking every day. My blood pressure is great. Do I really need that pill anymore? Or, because it can deplete your sodium in your system. And if you don't have enough sodium, you can become quite confused. You can become very weak. You can fall down. The other thing, as we grow older, we get a lot of urinary tract infections. So they can also make us very confused. They can make us fall down. When people are falling, it is a symptom of something. So it's not just that they're clumsy. It's a symptom that something is wrong in their body, and they need to have it checked out. And I personally am a faller, have been for a long time, but it's due to a physical issue with my back. And so I have weakness in my legs, so I fall down. So I know the reason why I'm falling. I was prescribed bifocals, and so I had those. And I had 3 falls, bang, 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 where I fractured an elbow, a foot, and something else. And it was the bifocals. So there's a reason why we fall. Humans don't fall down unless there's a reason. So don't take it for granted that we're old and we fall, because it's just not so. So please investigate why. But do your drug reviews with your doctor every year. Get rid of what you can. And be careful of the over-the-counters, please. Gravol is not a good drug for older brains. Benadryl is not a good drug for older brains. All these insomnia pills are not good. So just keep an eye out on those things too, and try to keep everything to a minimum if you can.
There are other questions or scenarios?
Melatonin is a natural enzyme in your brain, and we actually use that in the hospital more so than sleeping pills. So one of the sleeping pills we used a lot of is called Zopicone or Imivane. Not a great drug for brains, older brains. But the melatonin, where it's a natural, we used to give that all the time, and we could go up to 10 milligrams at nighttime. So, but again, a lot of people get a hangover effect the next day. So it just depends on how you tolerate it. Yeah.
I've heard about melatonin that you can only take it for so long. Some
No,
people just take it
no,
continuously.
I think you can take it as long as you find it effective.
Most people I've heard, melatonin does not help somebody go to sleep. It may for some, but I've tried many times. It hasn't done anything for me.
Right. And it's all very individual, very much like dementia. It's all individual. Nobody does the same symptoms for dementias either. But I would say that, I like to do the warm milk thing, as gross as it is to some people. And I also do, I have an app on my phone for music at sleep time. So it's just nice rainwater, all that sort of thing, and little pipes in the background and birds calling and that sort of thing, because I miss the ocean in St. John. And so I have to hear the seagulls every now and again. So I find that comforting to me at nighttime. And I know that when I worked in the hospital, we had a lot of people, we put them to bed way too early. And we didn't give them any activities to do in the evening, because our recreation people only work during the day. So therefore, they just went to bed because they were bored. But if you can find an activity that somebody likes, one of my favorite things I used to love to do for people that were a little more advanced maybe, but was, we had a basket of baby clothes, and we threw them in the dryer so that they were warm. And so they would fold the warm baby clothes and warm towels. And that was always a very relaxing activity. And then when we put them to bed, we always put a flannel in the dryer. And then we put the warm flannel on them, and it was just so nice. So if you can't go to sleep, throw a blanket into your dryer and then throw it on top of you. See if that helps.
Questions or scenarios? Ask about.
My mom can't read. So do you have suggestions?
So my suggestions for somebody who's illiterate that cannot read, are pictures such as a toilet to put on the door of the toilet room of the bathroom. Again, with your dishes, have picture outside the cupboard of plates for, that sort of thing. I find now, I was at Moncton Hospital last week doing some data collection and I was looking for a bathroom and it's an old building. It's a very old hospital. And I went down the hall and there were these two doors there and both of them had toilets on the door. And I said, well, I guess this one's for me. So anyway, but I mean, there it's English and French, right? So who knows? So anyway, I was very happy to see the toilet on the door. I knew where I was going, so. So I'm gonna finish off with just a little story. And I love this story. And I actually met the fellow I'm gonna tell you about. I met his son a couple weeks ago at a funeral. And this man's name was Doug. And Doug had been living in the community. He was out driving around doing his own thing. He lived outside of Sussex and he crashed his car. And when the RCMP came, he told them his wife had been with him. So they spent a bit of time trying to find his wife. So they finally got a hold of our friend and said to him, your father's been in an accident. He's okay. He seems a bit confused, but we're looking for your mother because she was in the car with them. And our friend said, well, you'll find her about 6 miles down the road and she's 6 feet under. So she's not with him. So anyway, that prompted him to be admitted to the hospital. And then he further along came to the gem unit. So this particular day, he had befriended a lady on the unit, another patient, and they had decided that they were married. And he called her by his wife's name and she called him by her husband's name. And they got along very well and neither one of them corrected the other person. And they would sit together in our dining room and they would hold hands. And it was very lovey-dovey and just sweet. So one day after they'd had their meal, we had a piano in the dining room. And so she got up and she went over and she sat down and she was a beautiful piano player. And she played a song. And when she was done, everybody clapped and, oh, that was wonderful. Play us another one. So she did Roll Out the Barrel or something. Everybody was singing and happy. So Doug looks at the orderly that was with us that day and he says, he says, I've been married to her for 50 years and I never knew she could play the piano. So it's one of my favorite stories. And I told his son when I saw him a couple weeks ago at the funeral parlor and I said, I tell that story about your father all the time. And he said, well, you have to laugh because he said, it would just make you so sad to know all the things that go on. So he said, try and find the humor in things. So anyway, that's one of my favorite stories and it's a true story. And there's more stories about him, which I'm not going to go into, but he really made my career full of laughter and fun. So anyway, thank you all for your attention today. I hope I gave you one little bit to help you out.
Thank you, Sherry, for sort of normalizing this experience a little bit for us and helping us sort of see what might be coming. And it really sounds like you had a real calling in the whole geriatric field. And I'm just so thankful that there are people like you that are called to this kind of work and can help us understand it a little bit deeper. I know I've learned some things today. I hope all of you have. And we do look forward to presenting other seminars and workshops like this for people in this area. Like I said before, you can go to our website and you can see what's coming up next month. We have Dan Curran coming, and I know as a pharmacist, one of the things that he will say is you should have an annual appointment with your pharmacist, and he will go through your drugs and interactions and make suggestions. And pharmacists have a much deeper level of knowledge on pharmaceuticals than doctors do.
And ask him about your fish oil.
I will ask him. Thank you.
I'd like to hear his opinion.
I will find it. I'll let you know. Yeah, so thank you all for coming and watch for our new things that are coming up. And Have a great rest of your day. If there's more tea or coffee out there, please help yourself.